Hello and welcome to Lesson 12, Help Your Husband When He Is in Need. I actually had this in the previous lesson, but the previous lesson became too long, and so I just moved this out to a new lesson. So, dear ladies, many of you might have read the last chapter and be openly questioning as to whether Jennifer could really have done all those things that I said she did. The feeding my food to the dog, refusing to work, moving house, those sorts of things. Well, if you want any confirmation, why not call her father and mother or write to them? Their details are there, they're right there on the screen. Phone number and email address, as well as a paper mail address. Ask Bill or Irene directly if I put Jennifer through college and got her a job at IBM only for her to refuse to go to work. Ask them directly if Jennifer relocated to Wagga, and I asked them to please talk to their daughter on my behalf and insist this was not okay, that we could not afford it. Ask Bill directly if I sent him Jennifer's perjurious court documents and asked him to intervene so there would be no conflict. Ask Bill directly if he loaned Jennifer $35,000, as was stated in Jennifer's court documents, so that she could sustain her perjury and sustain her criminal attack on me. It's not like Bill and Irene are going to be moving anytime soon. They have lived at that address 38 years now. There would be little point moving, since there is nowhere they can run and hide from their crimes and the crimes of their children, right? I have set about the task of making the term for being criminally victimised by a woman in the family courts to be told. I'm going to use their name as a synonym for a criminal family who all fall in behind a criminal woman in order to criminally victimise a good husband. And I think it's pretty amusing to call such an event to be told. Some of the next stories Bill and Irene are not aware of, but I am sure that they will be aware of them pretty soon, as their daughter continues to be used as an example of everything a woman should not do if she wants to be an attractive wife to a quality man like me. I think this event was Christmas 1994. I'm not quite sure. It was at Christmas time, but it's hard for me to pinpoint which one. Perhaps some other event will come back to me so that I can be sure. On Christmas Eve, I came down with the symptoms of meningitis, very severe migraine and other symptoms. The doctor was called, and his recommendation was for me to have spinal fluid taken from my spine as a diagnostic test for meningitis. He said, I don't think you have meningitis, but if you do and you die overnight, the paperwork is a hassle on me, so much better that you don't die in the next 24 hours for me. He was joking, of course. The nurse who gave the lumbar puncture was too small and too weak to perform that procedure properly. But hey, being too small and too weak to do the job properly has never stopped a woman being recruited into a job, even if that job is something so serious and so important as taking spinal fluid from a patient's spinal column, right? She took 5 attempts to get the spinal fluid needed while I was in the most excruciating pain. Thank you, feminism, for putting women into jobs where they are totally incompetent and paying them with my taxpayer dollars. Good on you. Thanks very much for that. What we did not know at the time was that she had torn a hole in my spinal column due to her incompetence. Over the next few days, spinal fluid leaked from this hole up my spinal column into my brain and inflamed my brain. This caused pain that was so severe I was vomiting and also had diarrhea. I could not stand up as my sense of balance was damaged because of the pain in my brain. It took a full body scan to find the hole in my spinal column. The fix was to be put back into the hospital, take blood from my arm, inject it over the hole in my spinal column, strap me to the bed for 12 hours, and hope the blood would clot over the hole in my spinal column. I was told we would have to do this as many times as it took to seal the leak in my spinal column, because the irritation and inflammation of the brain was, in and of itself, dangerous and could result in damage to the brain. I was to be done at 10 a.m. on the day, so I was told to eat my dinner about 6 p.m. the night before, drink about 10 p.m. the night before, and then no fluid and no food after 10 p.m. I was to be as empty as possible at 10 a.m., because once I was done, I would be strapped to the bed for 12 hours, and that included no bedpans. Even urinating was to be avoided if at all possible in those 12 hours. As the story goes, it was a public hospital because it was Christmas time and the private hospital was shut. They put me in a room where, you guessed it, they were jackhammering the tiles off the floor above me in maintenance. Yet, with migraine splitting headaches, they figured the place to park me was under a construction site. Thank you, feminist nurses. There was, apparently, in a whole hospital, no other place I could be parked. Gee whiz, colour me surprised, right? As per usual, they were running late, and I was finally operated on at 5 p.m, 7 hours after the scheduled operation. Now, please remember, at this time I had had no food for 24 hours and only a sip of water at 8 a.m, and my last glass of water was 10 p.m. the night before. I was back in my room about 6 p.m. The nurse came by. Remember, I am now strapped to my bed and told that if I dislodged the blood over the hole in my spine, that we would have to do it all again tomorrow, and we would keep doing it until we made the clot stick. So I was pretty motivated not to move. I asked the nurse for something small to eat and something to drink, please. Her answer was, dinner time is over, you have to wait till breakfast. I patiently explained that because the hospital was 7 hours late on my procedure, I had not eaten for 24 hours and not had any fluids for 10 hours, and I needed something to eat and drink. No, just as she just said, feeding you is not my problem. So I asked her if she would bring my cell phone so I could call Jennifer to bring me food and water. She said no, she would not bring my cell phone either. So remember, this is 1994. This is a nurse who is working in a public hospital paid for primarily by the taxes of men. It is not like this is yesterday or new. Feminazi nurses have been taking great pleasure in mistreating male patients for many years now, and there has not been the breath of a complaint or the breath of exposure of this mistreatment from the feminist population. Mistreatment of men in hospitals in the UK is now rife and is finally being reported in the news media. Anyway, about 8 p.m, Jennifer came along to visit to see how I was getting on. Her and this nurse came to my bed. I said to Jennifer that the nurse was a disgrace to her profession as she had refused me food and water on my request. I said it while the nurse was standing there. And then the nurse said, "Oh, your husband has been whining like a baby. Bring me food, bring me water, bring me my phone. I really don't know how you put up with him." And Jennifer said, "Oh, he's always whining like a baby. Some days I think I have 5 children and no other adult around the house to help me raise the little ones." And the two of them laugh over this effort at humiliating me. Now, before I go on, I will mention that I told that story to Sue One. She was aghast. She said words to the effect, "You were injured by an incompetent nurse. You had something so serious as a hole in your spine that was seriously affecting your brain. It could have caused you serious brain damage if not treated, and you asked for food and water, and your wife laughed at you and mocked you." This is what she said. "Your wife laughed at you and mocked you? The woman is evil," she said. Sue One often said Jennifer was evil. Now that is the sort of response a man in that position will get from an Eastern European woman. In Eastern European cultures, it is not okay to laugh at and mock your husband, no matter what the situation is. They practice honour thy husband. When the nurse left, I turned to Jennifer and said, "How dare you mock me? I am your husband. I will deal with your mocking of me at a later date. Now, I need food and water. I want you to go to McDonald's and bring back ice cream and fries. I can handle that. I also need still water, no gas. Are you willing to do that for me?" And I could see from her face that she was not about to say no, knowing that I was going to deal with her mocking of me at a later date. This is how women treat their husbands in the West now. Rather than honour thy husband, it is laugh at him and mock him when he's been injured by another incompetent feminist woman. Gee, thanks. And then you women say men must respect women. What about do unto others? Western women have disrespected men endlessly, and because of this, you are not worthy of the respect of quality men in return. Western women are going to have to earn the respect back of quality men, and you are doing a terrible job of doing so. The next event is another example to helping your husband when he is in need. A few years later, I think it was 1996, we bought some push bikes for the little children to learn to ride push bikes. Joshua was now 3 and he could easily ride a bike with training wheels, and we decided it was time for them to learn to ride push bikes. I spent the afternoon putting the bikes together, and at the end of the day had some soreness and stiffness in my back. I didn't think anything of it because that was quite normal. In the morning my back was frozen and I was in agony. I had a doctor come to the house and he confirmed that I had slipped some discs and was in need of physio every day for a week. He shot me full of some painkiller or other, and if I remember rightly, came back the next day to do the same. It's all a bit of a blur to me, as whatever the painkiller was really knocked me out. The pain was excruciating. Now at this point I will recall that when I was 14, my father developed sciatica, which is an inflammation of the nerves in his legs up to his back. He would have been about 40 at the time, maybe 39. In any case, he was screaming in pain and was a man who was tough as nails, so this was a pretty serious situation in our household. My mum nursed him every day. She would not leave his side for 2 weeks. He was given morphine for 2 or 3 days to ease the pain, but after that he was allowed no more for the concerns of getting too used to it. So in the next few days my father was in terrible pain and Mum nursed him. She had cool towels for his head and hot packs for his inflamed nerves and his head and his back, in his head and back, in his legs and back. Just like she nursed me when I was occasionally sick, she nursed my father. She helped him when he needed help. My aunts came to the house to cook and clean and take care of us boys so that Mum did not have to worry about anything other than her husband. Naturally, now it was 20 years later and I was the one with the back injury, I was expecting not too dissimilar treatment, right? That would be reasonable, right? I can say that the pain was so bad that I could not even walk to the bathroom. I had to crawl on my hands and knees to the bathroom, and I was screaming every step of the way, even with the painkiller I had been given, whatever that was. I think it was on the 3rd day that I finally had some hunger. I was very faint in the head. I had no idea if I had anything to eat or drink since the first shot the doctor gave me. I wasn't even sure what day it was. I called Jennifer to please come and help me. I asked her if she would please bring me some food and water. I was starving and very thirsty. Her answer was, "Why should I fetch and carry for you? What am I, your slave?" How far have women progressed since the 70s, eh? In the 70s, a husband who was injured would be nursed by his wife and his sisters, and his wife's sisters would come and bring food and clean the house and make sure the household ran smoothly, so the wife could pay full attention to her husband to help him recover as quickly as possible. Oh, that's so old-fashioned. That's so 70s. Women are have now progressed. They are liberated and emancipated and empowered, and you go, girl. So when a husband is injured, even one who has done as much for his family as me, the progressive wife says, "Why should I fetch and carry for you? What am I, your slave?" That is so 90s, right? And now we are in the 10s. I can assure you it's getting worse, not better. And it was the same at Christmas 2003 when I injured my back again and was confined to bed for 2 weeks. I had to get better as I had a prepaid return flight to Saudi Arabia to go back to work, and my back had to be in condition to take the stresses of a 2-stop flight back to Riyadh. It was not an option not to go back to work to pay for the family. Then again, Jennifer argued and hemmed and hawed over bringing me food I needed to my sickbed, a condition I was in precisely because I had accidentally injured my back doing her job when she refused to do it, cleaning the house. By the time I was working in Romania in 2004, our relationship was very cool indeed. Jennifer had realised that I really was going to divorce her when we got our citizenship sorted out, and she was starting to act more pleasantly towards me in an effort to try and change my mind. Good luck with that. At one point, I had visa problems with my work in Romania, and I had to work from my home office in Dublin for a period. What I was doing was filling out an Excel spreadsheet. No need to say what that was all about, just that's what I was filling in each day. By this time, just 15 years or so into our marriage, not like it's rushing anything, Jennifer had agreed that since she did no useful work to help me bring money into the house, she would actually gracefully make my sandwiches and bring them to me in my office. Wow, what a concession. She would make my sandwiches. Anyway, every day she would bring me my lunch. I would be sitting at my computer, typing entries into this spreadsheet. After about 4 or 5 days, she asked me what I was doing. And I said, well, what I'm doing is documenting where all the data from the billing system for the phone company will go in our new database. Every field has to have one line in the spreadsheet to say where it is coming from, what happens to it, and where it needs to be stored. And she said, how many fields are there in this project? And I said, it's about 2,500 in this one. And she said, so you have to make 2,500 decisions as to where each and every one of these fields go. And I went, yep. And she said, oh, how long does that take? I said, well, in this case, it's going to take about 8 weeks. And she said, let me get this right. You are going to sit in front of this spreadsheet for 8 weeks and fill in 2,500 rows defining these things. And I said, yes, 10 hours a day, 5 days, maybe 6 days if we get behind, a week, for 8 weeks. Maybe longer if I have any problems I don't foresee, which is quite normal, by the way. But that looks boring. I thought your job was interesting, glamorous and interesting. Huh. And I said, my job is deadly boring. To do this job is incredibly difficult. You have to have intimate understanding of all the data. You have to intimately understand all the data that is coming at you. You have to understand the data models you are putting it into, and you have to take painstaking care and exercise extreme precision to get it all absolutely perfect, or as best you can, so that you do not have to do rework later. So this is a very difficult job, very demanding mentally, and it is as boring as hell. The good bit is I get to be bored in some exotic locations occasionally. And she said, I had no idea this is what you were doing for a living. And I said, just think about this for a minute, Jenny. This job I do is what puts food on your plate. Food on the plate of the children. It is what pays for our house, our clothes, the car, the children's schooling. Everything we get because I sit down and do this day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Okay? And she nods. And you care so little about me, so little about what I do, that you did not even think to ask me what I do for a living now. Really? You are an ex-IBM programmer with a degree in IT, and you are so disinterested in how I pay for everything that you cannot be even bothered to ask me what I do to pay for everything. It's not like you would not understand. And furthermore, you said in 2002, in order to get me to go for Irish citizenship, that you will help me in my company and help me earn money for the children. And you have not struck a blow in 2 years, even to help put food on the plate for your children. That's too much to ask. And you wonder why I have no respect for you. You wonder why I think you are a terrible wife and mother. How many examples do you have to see of yourself before you will realize what a shrew you have become? How many times are you going to need to be noticed what a terrible mother you are before you resolve to do the best for your children. When a wife cannot even be bothered to learn thing one about what her husband does, let alone help him, she is a very unattractive wife. So my dear ladies, these are the kinds of behaviours that I would recommend you, my dear reader, not engage in. Further, I would recommend that you denounce women who do engage in them, so that you advertise that you are a woman who wants to be a good wife, who wants a quality husband for the remainder of your life. That is the lesson for today. Thank you for listening or reading.